I met John in Boston at Berkeley, at the Berkeley College of Music. We were both kids, but I was a bigger kid than he was. I was a teacher there. I taught briefly there in the mid-1970s. This would have been 1974 or 75. He had finished studying there, but he was still hanging around Boston, kind of poised to make the leap to New York City. At that time, in the mid-1970s, if you wanted to be a jazz musician, you had to go to New York City. There was no other path to take. And what I remember first about our initial contact in Boston was I broke the neck of his guitar in the course of trying to fix it. And he was incredibly graceful about my having done so. It was a beautiful old guitar. And I very authoritatively and presumptuously said, "Oh, I'll fix that for you," and broke it. It was a wonderful moment, really. And I think it sort of defined our friendship. If he was able to endure the loss of his instrument at my hands, he was able to endure anything. And we've had a long relationship since, based on mutual tolerance. I guess you could say. He was just forming as a player. He was just finding his voice. Of course, playing for your entire life is sort of the process of finding your own voice, and it's a process that's never finished. But John was just poised at making an individual statement, and I saw that the very first time we played together, and felt the very first time we played together that we would have a long history playing together. It was I not only thought it, but I'd presume to say I knew it. And we ended up playing together with Gary Burton's quartet shortly after we met, and it kind of cemented a musical friendship during that period. After the Gary Burton Association, he did in fact move to New York and started doing a wide variety of things, and for 5 or 6 years we didn't play together so often. And then he called and asked me to play in his trio, and I said yes immediately. I had been kind of waiting for the call. In fact, I wasn't surprised. So he and Adam Nussbaum and I began playing together in the early 1980s and played together for a few years. And that was a really exciting time for us all, as John was really solidifying his approach to improvising and to playing jazz music. The trio provided us with an ideal vehicle to drive toward finding a voice. It was a remarkably fortunate experience, I think for all of us. Part of what made the trio work as well as it did, and something that might not so often be emphasized when people are talking about John, is his writing for that trio was terribly important. in providing us for a format in which to speak, and for even kind of defining the parameters of our speech. Composing in jazz music is, I think, persistently undervalued and ignored, because it's an improviser's art and all of that, and it is predominantly a player's music. But the players are really dependent on what they're given to play. And John has been a tremendously prolific writer over the years, ever since those days in the 1980s when he was writing a lot for our trio. And he kind of writes as the occasion demands it. He's not the guy who sits in his garret with the paper in front of him and conjures up masterpieces. He sees that there's a recording coming in a couple of months and that he needs 10 tunes, and so he sits down and writes them. And that's actually how it's really done, that's... He's not just a guitar player, and that's he's really a musician, and that's maybe worth emphasizing in his case, just because guitar players in particular are so often seen as kind of Olympic athletes and runners of decathlons and weightlifters, and that. There is a kind of physicality to guitar playing that encourages that point of view, but and there is a kind of culture that's grown up around the guitar that favors dexterity and loudness and virtuosity, to all of that stuff. And John doesn't lack that. He's become a kind of guitar hero, I guess. But that shouldn't obscure the plain fact that he's a real musician. What he does is very much connected to the fingerboard of the guitar. It's the way he sees music is very strongly connected to the geometry of the neck of the guitar. The kind of music he writes couldn't be written on the piano keyboard. Well, it could, but wouldn't be written on the piano keyboard. It's real guitar music, which of course is great for me because I'm a kind of low, simple guitar player of a sort myself. And I think that's part of what makes our trio work, is that it is a guitar band. But I don't want to lose sight of the important fact that what John has accomplished really transcends the instrument. Many years later, and our paths kind of intersected again, and there was a second trio with Bill Stewart that persists to this day. We've made a few records, and we're about to go on tour again next spring. It's a far different trio than the one with Nussbaum, because Bill Stewart's voice is distinct from Nussbaum's. They're both very personal and idiosyncratic players. I'd recognize either of them in a couple of bars. It's as much a matter of touch as anything else, and they have shockingly different touches. It's remarkable that the range of possible ways of hitting a drum are kind of defined by the two. The extremes are defined by the two of them. John's playing responds to his environment so acutely and so persistently that his playing with the trio with Bills is vastly different from the playing in that early trio with Nussbaum. Of course, there have been a number of years between the two projects, and John's playing of necessity and naturally, at any rate, changed, as it should be, of course, but as it isn't so often. John responds to everything that's going on around him, which can be kind of harrowing, because if you play a wrong note, he'll respond to that wrong note, and you might think you're about to get away with something, but you never do. He hears everything, and makes something of everything in the air around him, and of course that's what improvisation is supposed to be, but it's not very often. Most improvisers, and some of the very best improvisers at that, say what they say, and they say it loud and clear regardless of the circumstance or the occasion. It's and they speak well because they've honed their message so carefully over so many years, and they've kind of focused with single-mindedness on a particular way of speaking and a particular message. That's not John. John lets it rip every time. One never knows what one's going to get. He's kind of blundering into new territory every time he picks that instrument up. And you'd think he would be, you'd think he'd kind of solidify his gains by now and play what he knows, but he's never done so. He retains this wonderful kind of wide-eyed sense of adventure, the sense that there's something wonderful just around the corner if he can only get around the corner. He loves surprise and loves to be surprised, and I think he loves to encounter stuff he hasn't seen before. And there are many excellent players who avoid surprises because it causes breaks in the smoothness of their line. It causes a momentary lapse in their sure-footedness, a momentary stumble when you're surprised. John's playing is full of stumbles and fits and starts, and it's very much real life what John does when he plays, and I love that about his playing, and I kind of feed off it too, because as a bass player, that's I would be ill-advised to do that. I need to be kind of steadfast and to move with a measured pace through the music, and of course John needs that. So we're very good friends. We're the best of friends to this day, and he's a good friend to have. He's staunch. He's kind of doggedly friendly, doggedly loyal. Me too. When we first met, there was a bit of the I was the veteran and he was the rookie, and I was the teacher and he was the ex-student, and so on. It's been a long march away from those distinctions toward a much deeper friendship based on equality, and I think that's where we've gotten, or at least where we've gotten most of the way. We walk a little bit the same, we talk a little bit the same, we have many points of cultural reference that coincide. For that reason, we're really comfortable with each other too, and that's something I've come to value a lot over the years. I'm not his mentor. I'm more like his mom on occasion, and that